the NFL podcast. Who is Greg going to piss off today?
And that's why you listen in part, because you want to know who Greg's going to get angry next. Spoiler alert, it's Mark from the Chris Wessling Podcast Studio. It's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hansis. Greg is here. Mark is here. Week 15 is here. Nailed it.
Perfectly done with the sound and the music ending, just as you spoke there.
Well, who's to say that you guys aren't going to get me mad today? You know,
it's hard to get you mad. I've done it, but it's not easy to do. At least outwardly.
Tried. Yeah, you've tried.
Okay, this is a good one. It's different now. The bye weeks. It's over. No more byes. There's not 3 weeks left in the season. There's 4, because this is the biggest season ever, Mark Sessler.
It is, and I love the robust nature of it. I totally support the extra week. It's a joy.
And don't forget the runner-up in the slogan for the season: football was family. So we have 4 weeks left.
The longest season ever was another one they tried out.
Well, it's accurate.
Anyway, so yes, no more byes. So we got 32 teams in action this week. However, different setup. We have 2 Saturday games. We have the Thursday night game. You'll hear the recap of that. Chiefs-Chargers tonight. We have a Monday night game that involves the Vikings. So everybody rejoice, because it's going to be a wild game that goes down to the finish. And then we have a slate of Sunday games, and that is what we will pull from for the draft. But before we get to the games and the previews, we got to talk about the latest coach to go down. And I have to say, the firing of Urban Meyer, certainly in our time doing the show, has to go down as the most, like, an unprecedented shit show in this realm. Like, does anything top? And I texted Steve Weiss this morning, because I know he used to cover the Falcons, and I asked him if he thought maybe the Bobby Petrino situation down there was worse. Steve hasn't gotten back to me. Maybe he's busy. I don't know.
It's on air. Yeah. I just saw him on air.
Maybe it's personal. I don't know. I'm going to try to move past that. But I think pound for pound, when you factor in everything that Meyer was supposed to be and everything he became, which was monstrous to this franchise, Greg, this is the worst hire of all time in the NFL.
Well, especially when, you think of the money, the length of the contract. I don't know if they're going to try, Shad Khan, the team owner, is going to try to say that this was for cause and not pay him. We'll see. But in terms of everything that happened throughout, Petrino, I remember I was working at PFT at the time, I think, and he was a really bad coach that was getting a lot of criticism. But the thing he's just remembered for is they just left suddenly, that he just ducked out. There wasn't this, you weren't expecting that to happen. That was part of the excitement with Petrino, was he just left a hand or a printed out letter in everyone's locker, and it was like, what? He just ditched. Urban Meyer, it started with, the racist offensive line coach that he hired.
Bit of a red flag right off the bat.
That was bad. And it continued with all these different stories. And the crazy part was, it really does feel like Josh Lambo, the former kicker, who told the story to The Athletic, that Urban Meyer literally kicked him during training camp. And when Lambo responded saying, "Don't touch me," using some colorful words, Urban said, I'll kick whoever I want. Again, I'm taking out the colorful words.
Well, he said, "I'm the ball coach. I'll kick whoever the blank I want." It's like, dude, what? And by the way, he denied all that or whatever, but he definitely did that stuff. And here's the other thing. There is a connection here. The Kicker Club is not just this party zone.
Okay.
The Kicker Club has a little pop. It has a little juice outside the velvet rope. And once we heard that someone harmed or disrespected one of our own, we sent some heavy hitters to end Urban Meyer's career. And that's what happened.
That's how that club works. Well done by the club.
You come for one of us, you come for all of us, and we're coming back at you 10 times as strong. Sorry, go ahead. Back to reality.
I think with Urban Meyer too, it seemed like no one wish-casted him to be what he might be more than Shad Khan. I mean, who just called him essentially his dream hire and had clearly been fascinated with him for so long. I think there were plenty of people inside and outside the NFL that thought it was a really high-risk, high-reward hire from the start. And it turned into, I just think it's a contrast in like why a lot of these college coaches don't work in the NFL too, and how it just doesn't pan out, because Urban Meyer, wherever he went, was like the sun. He had all power, but that's not how the league works, essentially, where you've got to work with an owner. You've got to, probably do all sorts of stuff you didn't have to do as a college coach. You can't lean on your recruiting class year after year, and you find out that it's a lot harder to win with a trash bag roster. And I don't think Urban Meyer ever really seemed mentally or psychologically up to the task of a rebuild. It was like even his words, it's like, we're here to win right now. And I know some of that's coach speak, but I think he literally got about 6 or 7 weeks into it. And I had no more enjoyable thing on Sundays than looking at his face each week. I think he was someone that was so unhappy and out of place.
That handshake, and it was the final handshake of his NFL career with Mike Vrabel, a former assistant, after he was shut out. And again, the last game of his NFL career, because he will never sniff professional football at this level again. Said it all. He had, just that he was in his own world, a world of his own creation, and nobody wanted to help him, and nobody will.
And he was tuned out. Like when they would ask him about, James Robinson coming on and off the field, but also, his safety. Like he was not too plugged in, and he thought it was just this top-down, style of management could work, that this staff, which he had trouble putting together. He was not picking like the top of the litter here. Joe Cullen's his defensive coordinator back in the day, was with the Lions and everything during 0-16. It's like they didn't respect him. No one respected him. And I guess it's just like it was just this force of personality. And if you're Shad Khan, like, people are getting on Urban Meyer of, like, you're calling all your coaches losers. Who hired him? Like, you hired him, Urban Meyer. Well, who hired Urban Meyer? It was this ownership, which for the last 11 seasons, 10 of which Shad Khan's been involved, they've won more than 6 games one time.
Can we set the line that he said when he sat at the dais after draft day, after Trevor Lawrence came in the building, Travis Etienne was on the stage, Urban Meyer was on the stage, and Shad Khan says, "This time I got it right." I mean, he did not see this coming.
Not at all.
And it is, if you're a Jaguars fan right now, you're relieved that Urban Meyer is out of the building, because this guy was a nightmare from day one, obviously. But at the same time, there are a lot of concerns. A, do you have ownership that has the right instincts to run an organization properly? B, the damage done to Trevor Lawrence in his rookie year, is that something that could be undone? Where is he from a mental standpoint, let alone, forget about the physical side and learning the sport. Does he still love the game after this year? It's been that type of bad season. There are a lot of big concerns.
And yet, like, when you look back to the way Urban Meyer spoke so forcefully, and we had him, I don't know if you guys remember, we had him on as a guest during the offseason. Like, you could see, like, how Shad Khan could fall for this sort of confidence.
I got this. I'm not Chip Kelly. I'm not Nick Saban jumping to the NCAA at the first sign of trouble. Who do these people think they're dealing with? So what if I hired a racist strength coach? What am I, ZipRecruiter?
See, I mean, it's just like when you're that powerful a figure, you convince people.
What a get by us. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was it was a spicy get. Greg, I will say that he's been on your radar, Urban Meyer, from the minute he entered the league.
And now he exits the league. So, and by the way, Darrell Bevell takes over as the interim coach. We'll get to their matchup a little bit later, but obviously it's really not about the rest of the season for the Jaguars. It's what they do next, and they have a lot to do to get things right. All right, let's get to Week 15. Let's start, before we get to our draft, with the Saturday games and the primetime games on Sunday and Monday. So we'll start with Raiders at Browns. And, okay, so the Raiders have been pretty brutal since their bye week. They had that one win over the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. That's increasingly feeling like an outlier. Look at the bigger picture of where they're at, and it feels like the same thing that's happening. The last couple of years is happening again. They are dead in the water. I feel that they are. I don't think they have a pulse. That's why I locked up the Browns, and I will stick with that lock as long as we get some semblance of the Cleveland Browns on the field Saturday. And that's where it gets interesting, Mark, and interesting in a bad way, is that COVID-19 has wiped out seemingly half of the Browns roster and coaching staff once again.
Yeah, I mean, it's the cherry on top of a terrible COVID Omicron laced week for the entire league. They've got it's 15 plus, 10 regular contributors or starters. It includes Baker Mayfield. It includes Wyatt Teller. It includes Jedrick Wills. That's two key components of your offensive line. Jarvis Landry's out. A flock of skill position players. It's the kind of thing that if you were to back out of this lockdown, I mean, you'd have every reason in the world to, because it's anyone's guess. Their coach won't be on the field either. What will happen on Sunday? I know Darren Waller is out for the Raiders. That has been a big part of why they have looked so punchless. But they, in general, seem like a team that is just a lost ship at this point. They're not very good in any way. Even Derek Carr still gives them a chance in this game, but I think Cleveland can still win this. My head is spinning trying to catch up with how they can feel the team. I think that one thing that we underrate a little bit, because we're in a fantasy football culture, it's like, oh, you've got to go figure out what to do if Jarvis Landry was your fourth wideout on your fantasy team. But there are probably 30% of their playbook options that are not options now, because you're going to have practice squad guys in there and backups. They've not been used this way, and so your ability to be creative is limited. That said, you're playing a Raiders team with a limited creativity of its own.
Right. The Raiders' offensive line has gone from passable to just brutal the last few weeks. Because I keep watching Carr each week, with this eye on really moving him down in the QB index and seeing how he's playing.
Where's he at now?
I think he's at 8 or 9 or something.
Whoa.
Okay. But I don't know what else he could have done. First of all, 3 of his teammates fumbled last week, and another one dropped a pass that turned into an interception, and that's just bad luck. But the offensive line has slowly gotten worse and worse. It's what we talked about in the offseason. And one part of the Browns team that actually is still healthy, we hope, is the defensive line. Now, Jadeveon Clowney's had a non-COVID illness and is out of practice. Myles Garrett's been trying to stay as far away from the team as possible, and because he has asthma and he had his COVID last week, but he is expected to play. The defensive line is supposed to be healthy, and that's the group I think that needs to step up. And Garrett kind of have that Defensive Player of the Year moment continued from a week ago when he absolutely stepped up and had one and helped them get that victory. With all that said, the COVID stuff, it worries me because it's bunched up. And, Dan, that would be a gutsy lock. I think it's a pick-em now. It was the Browns favored by 5.5 at one point because the COVID issues are all clustered. It's Landry and Hooper, so there's 2 of your pass catchers.
They're the only 2 pass catchers they had with more than 30 catches.
It's 2 of your best 3 offensive linemen in Teller and Wills. And then it's 4 of your 6 top defensive backs, including 2 safeties, a couple corners. And so that's a lot. And they should be given – and I don't think Baker being gone hurts at all. Case Keenum might be an upgrade, and I don't think he's a downgrade for a 1-week situation. But the rest of it, that's a lot. It's a lot to ask. I think they could do it, but it's still a lot to ask.
Now, here's something, and Mark and I were talking about it before we came in here. Now, at a certain point, yes, if you lose enough guys, you can't even be the same team you were. But this Browns team does have a way of responding well to adversity, and as long as they don't have all these guys out, maybe they get some back.
Njoku's back,
Saturday.
for instance. We found out on Thursday.
I still like their chances, and then you look at the urgency factor for the Browns because this should have been a gimme where the Raiders are, and now it's up in the air, obviously because of COVID. But this is the last time the Browns have what would be a very winnable game. They're at Green Bay next week, at Pittsburgh, which is always going to be a fight, and then home against Cincinnati. So all those games are coin flips at best. Green Bay, they'll be a heavy underdog. This is your chance to get to 8-6 and really give yourself a chance to win that division because it's so wide open. Lose this game, again, the Browns are a lot in trouble.
I mean, to Greg's cluster comment, when that happened to the Browns last year, yes, you have the Steelers game that they won with no Kevin Stefanski and players out, but they lost to the Jets because they were down to 1 wide receiver. It limits what you can do. And the Raiders, I mean, I know we're down on them. They're still a good football team. They have a good pass rush of their own against the wounded Browns offensive line.
You going to Chris Rose's house for this? I heard some talk in the film room.
Whoa.
There is some possibility of that. There's some possibility of that.
Whoa. Ricky, can you send
we're tight.
A camera crew for the Sessler Chris Rose experience? We got to see how big is Chris Rose's house. He's had a really good career. I love seeing that kind of stuff.
I would just say this, that if I were invited over to someone's house, I'm going to only release positive reports. I'm not going to return to the show, as some sort of double agent.
But then we could have a private conversation. I'm just saying. I would like to know what Chris Rose's house looks like.
I would imagine that it's a wonderful place.
All right, so there's that. And I will stick with the lock for now. I'm locking up the Browns, but I reserve the right come Saturday about, noontime Pacific. I'm going to get a lay of the land here, and I'll move off if I have to. But I do like the Browns a lot in that game. The other Saturday game, it's a primetime game. It's a gorgeous one. The New England Patriots, 9-4, coming off their bye. Travel to Lucas Oil Stadium. Bad job by me. I've been in that building 100 times to play the Colts at 7-6. Love it, Greg, because you have the Patriots who are in first place in the AFC East. They are within striking distance of are they currently the number one seed still?
They are, yes.
They are. They're the number one seed in the AFC. So
and look like it.
It's all in front of them. They
Mark
just got to
loves this
keep winning. All right, Mark, we got it. You like their performance in the weather. How about this game, though? Because I'll tell you what, maybe it's me being the Patriots hater. I like the Colts Saturday night.
Yeah,
what do you guys
there's
think?
no way.
Wait a second.
There's literally no way the Patriots pull this off. Jonathan Taylor, he is going to be running all over them.
Will she?
And there's not one part
Could
of me
she?
that believes that the Patriots could pull this one out.
Would
so
she?
I'm locking up the Colts.
Wow.
Well, we have a lock-off.
Oh,
I don't care about your little
yes!
magic spinning where you try to get into you're not getting into the head of the New England Patriots
I
or
have
the Colts.
been on an unreal backwards jinx streak.
We're going to start
you
out
have.
crediting you with wins for
Listeners
these.
are tweeting every day to like the main around the NFL handle, and I'm like, guys, we're not going to see that.
Is
You
it
know?
5 in a row or something?
It's like more than that.
Well,
So-
the Patriots have won 6 in a row. I don't know if you've been along the whole ride,
I
but,
think
but
I
most
have.
of it. Most of it.
I think it would be funny also just to get Greg mad about it if we kind of reversed it and said all these locks, obviously she's locking the other team, and give her credits for wins and then see where she's at in the standings.
She's doing it with that intent, so I do think she should get credit.
It's something. It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
I
and
am a
this
witch.
week, some of those they were heavy favorites, but most of them it was close. This week they're actually an underdog. The Patriots. It started as a slight favorite for the
How
Patriots.
mad does that make you, Mark?
Oh, you know what? Finish what you're saying, Greg, because I have a thought on that. It annoys me a bit.
anger.
What? No, I want to know.
Well, because you know what I think it says? That there is a resistance to accept what is happening. There is a resistance, and I know it's like I've talked to, I think Dan has it to some degree, but like Dan's more level-headed than a lot of people out there that just don't want to accept that New England is the best team in the conference, that anything that you look at, I think these are sort of mirror teams to some degree. I know we say that a lot, and they're not perfectly the same, but they both want to run the ball. They both have good run-stopping defenses. The Colts at this point, Ryan Kelly said, we put ourselves on the map as a run team. Teams are going to load the box. Only 3 teams in the league load the box more than the Patriots. I mean, I just think this is going to be like I hate this term, but like an old meat and potatoes type thing. And Jonathan Taylor has not been quite as good against stacked boxes. Anything that the Colts can do that looks a little bit like New England can do better.
I think Belichick is definitely, that's going to be an angle for him. It's like, how do you beat the Colts? Put the game in Carson Wentz's hands in a big spot in prime time with the whole season seemingly on the line and see if he cracks. I don't think that's a bad strategy.
No, I think
That's
we
how he
learned so
operates.
much about Wentz the next 2 weeks against the Pats and the Cardinals because one of the Colts linebackers said this week, we want to make them one-dimensional. And like it almost sounds like a shot at Mac Jones, but I think the Patriots are approaching the game in the same way, and I trust Mac Jones more than Carson Wentz ultimately to not make the big mistake. These teams are similar. I mean, it's not just the running, it's the turnover margin. They're both incredibly careful with the ball and opportunistic. The Colts are first in the NFL, and the Patriots are third, and that's after the Patriots through 4 or 5 weeks were terrible. This is usually a kind of a Belichick hallmark. So who can force like the big mistake? The difference to me is if you make the Patriots throw, like they'll throw. That's why I was annoyed by all the they don't trust Mac Jones in that game. It's like they threw the ball 32 times the week before against Tennessee because Tennessee had the same idea. We're going to do everything we can to stop the run, and they did a pretty good job. Mac Jones is happy to dink and dunk, and he's happy to take chances down the field. I think he is less likely to get confused by coverage than Carson Wentz in this game, and the red zone defense is a huge difference too. The Patriots are at first or second in the NFL, and the Colts are terrible. On paper, they are like doing what they want defensively. They slow teams down, but they don't finish at the end of the drive. They often don't finish. I think that's the difference.
I have one weird little stat for you, and I like historical stats on this show. We just toss them out the window. I get it, but it's Belichick based, and he's been Belichick the whole time. He's the same human being.
I like historical stats.
All right, well, it's his 21st regular season game where, as the Patriots coach, where he's facing a 1,000+ yard rusher. We're clearly at that point in the season. It's later in the year. It's bad weather. You know that team is probably based heavily, especially back in the early 2000s, around that rusher. He is 18-2 in those games.
Yeah. It's a good stat.
I don't think the line moving. First of all, it was small. It was like one for the Patriots to 2 for the Colts, which is a pretty small move ultimately. I think it's just a credit to what the Colts have done, and they're at home. That they have legitimately, since starting 0-3, are 7-3 with all 3 of those losses to quality teams in games that they lost leads, and their offense is explosive. And so I think you look at these two teams, and they're both top 10 NFL teams to me.
And I wouldn't have said this a month ago, but I think they're a better matchup than the Bills are for New England.
Right. I think they can match
they're a
strength
better
on
type
strength.
of team to deal with New England.
And by the way, Greg, the Colts, despite being 7-6 and not in first place in their division, are along with the Patriots in the top 10 of the power rankings. I'm with you guys. And that's why I think, because I have had reservations about the Pats, but if they do
Where are the Pats, 17, 18?
I have the Pats at 5, actually.
Okay, no, I'm kidding.
But if the Pats beat the Colts on the road in this spot, not only will I get on the same page as you, I will apologize to you, Mike.
Well, I'm not seeking
So
that.
not only will you
apologize.
celebrate a lock win in a big spot, I will also personally apologize to you on Sunday's show. How about that?
Well, I'd savor that just for the
Huge game.
just for what it is.
It's a bigger game for the Colts. It's a big game for both, but it's a bigger game for the Colts. They, as good as they are, they risk missing the playoffs here with the Cardinals coming up next
and
week.
this is Dan-centric. You know what I think? Because they asked Belichick about Hard Knocks, and of course, he doesn't want to be on it. But he wants to author like a really ugly episode for the Colts.
All right. Sunday Night Football, Saints at Buccaneers, Raymond James Stadium. The Saints coming off a win over the Jets. Not overly impressive, but they did get the job done. I believe it was 30-9, something along those lines. And now a much bigger test here against the Bucs, coming off that big overtime win against San Francisco. This is not San Francisco. Who did they beat last week? Tampa Bay.
The Bills.
The Bills, of course. This is a big test for New Orleans. Do you think, Mark, that the Bucs have – or the Saints have any chance to kind of hang in this battle considering their quarterback situation?
Not really. Not in the way that we've seen where they've beaten Brady 3 consecutive regular season games when they were healthy, when they had Drew Brees a year ago. I would have even given them a chance. They beat them earlier this year, and they seem to have Brady's number. There is something to it just if you look at the recent history. But the way the Bucs are playing right now, and we've said it before, it's like they're so precise and so successful that they're almost an afterthought and sort of dull. They're 6-0 at home. Their home and road splits are pretty incredible. They've scored 30+ in each of those 6-0 home games. The only other team that's ever done that is the 2007 Patriots. I just look at the way that certain players are heating up. Leonard Fournette is 9th in the league in scrimmage yards. He looks like a player that we've not seen in Leonard Fournette's body in a long, long time. Chris Godwin has 25 catches in the last 2 games. Gronkowski only played 5 snaps in that week that they lost to the Saints. We're getting a different Gronkowski right now. I know the defense is a little banged up and down, but the Saints are a mash unit. So I think the floor has fallen out.
I struggled with this one because you mentioned it. The last mountain for Brady to climb in Tampa is beating the Saints in the regular season and even having a clean game against the Saints, period. Because if you remember that playoff game against the Saints, they didn't do anything in the second half. They were totally stymied, and it was their defense, the Bucs defense, that were just marauders and would not let Drew Brees get back into that game. But the Saints defense for how many games? 8 quarters has been more than that. 16 quarters has been incredibly competitive against this team, and they are a little healthier than they were. They're healthy on the back end. Defensively, you had Marcus Davenport back last week. You hope you have Cam Jordan back from COVID. So it's definitely wishful thinking potentially, but I think they will make this a fun Sunday night game. And there is something about this Saints team I haven't totally given up on, that they're more than the sum of their parts. Kamara being back is so huge. I think Taysom Hill actually does give them something at quarterback that you definitely weren't getting with Simeon. And if you look at the Bucs' run defense, which Arians had that thing, is like nobody runs on us. People have the last month, so that's just the facts of it.
Atlanta did.
Right, the facts are, like, their numbers, everything about their rush defense hasn't been great. That's who the Saints are. I would love it if if Ramczyk was back for this game. I don't think he will. So they're not healthy on offense. I know Deontay Harris got suspended. We never mentioned that. He's like their one explosive player. It's ridiculous. But I think their defense can make this fun.
You got to keep up.
I don't like what I've seen from Taysom Hill in these 2 weeks, especially since the finger injury. I thought he was pretty bad for most of that Jets game, and
Fair.
a lot of his numbers came on a late touchdown run that didn't matter, and I don't even know if the Jets were playing at that point. But really, the way the ball was coming out of his hand was troubling. Now, that was up in northern New Jersey in December, so maybe playing down in Tampa, the finger will react differently. But I just haven't seen enough from him, and plus the fact that he doesn't have a lot of real high-octane weapons to throw to.
You're not a big Nick Vannett fan? I mean, their number one receiver is Nick Vannett. What is happening?
Yeah, well, I like Lil Jordan Humphrey, obviously. We love him here.
He's out, too. Another injury.
Jeez, so we don't have Lil Jordan either. I think there's only Kamara makes them a team to reckon with, but if the Bolzasants is able to negate or neutralize Kamara, this is going to be a very one-sided game. I kind of see this one getting away from the Saints. As much as I'd like to see it, Greg, because I think the Saints are always fun to be in the mix. I wish this game was at the Superdome, put it that way.
We'll be in the film thing. Maybe it is wishful thinking, but they were 10.5-point favorites, and I was with you guys initially thinking, this is their time to show that they're just going to wipe the floor. But it's not like they weren't trying in the other Saints game. Dennis Allen and this defense is just good.
Well, one of the Saints games was the first Tom Brady in a Bucs uniform. I'm not saying I throw that out, but I kind of throw it out. And I think this is a different situation. I mean, Brady talked about in his press conference on Thursday that he still burns with annoyance about the interceptions he threw against the Saints this season. So it's like that doesn't wash away for him. I think he's determined to wipe away the narrative we're talking about, that he can't beat this team.
And by the way, there is a path to the playoffs for the Saints, even if they don't win this week. I mean, it'd be nice to win this week. Obviously, it'd be a huge lift for them. But they really have to find a way to split one of the next 2 weeks. At Tampa, home Dolphins, okay? Win one of those games, then beat Carolina and Atlanta to end the season. Bang, you're 9-8, and that could get you
9-8
in.
probably gets you in the NFC.
So find a way to win either this week or next week, and then take care of your business. So the Saints still have a path, but this week's going to be very tough. Finally, Monday Night Football before we get to the draft. We have the Minnesota Vikings.
It's an intense preamble to get to the draft today.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice build-up. The Minnesota Vikings, the team of Zeus TL, coming off another insane game. They really did hit peak Vikings, I think, but you never know. There's been a lot of peaks this season for the Vikings in terms of ridiculousness. Going up 29-0 at home in the third quarter against the Steelers and still needing to make a stop on the last play of the game. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Even by their standards, that was pretty awesome. Like, they almost lost that game, straight up. But they didn't. They won. They stopped the 2-game slide, and now they get the Bears, who are 4-9, who have one win since October 10th. Greg, this makes sense as a game that Minnesota is going to take care of business, but they're not really a take-care-of-business team.
They're not, especially on this game's on the road. It's in the division, familiar opponents. The Bears will be without a lot of their coaches, their coordinators, all got put on the COVID list. Matt Nagy's still there, though, so I don't know. I don't know if that's like a good thing, a bad thing. But the defense for Chicago has really fallen off a cliff. Like, if Justin Fields was out there playing with like the 2018 or even the 2019 Bears defense, like, this team could be competitive, but it's a really bad defense right now. And that's why, also because, I'm not feeling like totally alive, and I just need to feel something in life. And nothing makes you feel something a little more than locking up the Vikings in a small spot.
I like that.
Safe.
That's where I was going. If I move off the Browns, I will be going Vikings.
Okay, you come join me.
And part of me thinks that maybe I should just do it, get out of that COVID.
Do you want
Quagmire.
your football weekend, and it's a long one,
Yeah.
to begin with a lock that goes south? Now, I mean, and
Or
I'm even saying this as a
ends in
friend,
an island
because-
game, and you're dying watching. Like, why did I? Because it's not going to be. Here's the thing with locking up the Vikings. Like, you just are accepting that with 4 minutes to go,
yes.
you're nervous. It's not going to be easy. You're just.
Exactly.
And you know what? I've been riding this all season long with him. Why don't we just turn up the stakes a little bit? I am going to move my lock over to Minnesota. It just feels right. I like the matchup for him. I think they're a far superior team to the Bears. I think Dalvin Cook going from carted off the field to 200 yards rushing again speaks to what a special player he is. Adam Thielen may be back, and that's a big thing for them because I think Kirk Cousins struggles against Pittsburgh, and he was not good at all against the Steelers. A lot of that connected to Adam Thielen being missing. I think it really makes him more uncomfortable as a quarterback. And as much as I don't want to say like Cousins, but as much as I think Cousins gets a bad rap sometimes when you look at what he's able to do, he is kind of a guy that needs things to be in order around him to do his bidding. And take Thielen, his dude, his safety blanket out, and that's been an issue, I think.
The Vikings, to your point, are such a conundrum to analyze because we did the TNF recap, and I had all these ideas when at halftime they had played such a complete game against Pittsburgh and out-yardaged them 300-49. They held Pittsburgh to 20 passing yards. But then the second half was such a collapse, and you look at a team that since week 9 in Minnesota is bottom 5 in points per game allowed, yards per play, total yards, and opposer passing rating.
It's the defense that I'm picking, that I'm really locking them up for, is that I kind of have faith. They are healthier on defense now than they were. They're generally healthy, and Zimmer cooking up like a rookie quarterback.
And yet it
That's
doesn't
sort
matter.
of yeah.
But
And yet it's going to end
Pittsburgh
up
it was Pittsburgh's best half of football on offense in the second half there, which is not a small feat.
Here's my fear, and cut to Monday night, and I'll get tweets about it like, oh, you were right, Dan. This will be one of those games where you're waiting for their offense to wake up, and it's like, oh, they had 2 first downs in the first quarter.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, wait a second. Why are they up 7-6 at halftime? Wake up. And then they have some type of horrible, hideous
Fields
gap.
has a 60-yard rushing touchdown.
Exactly. Like we take this on, and Greg is still in the distance in the race, but as someone who's tied with Mark
I'm
atop
done.
the standings,
I'm done. There is
I
no
understand
race for me.
I'm inviting a level of anxiety in my life that maybe doesn't need to be there. Holiday season, I got the in-laws coming in for a week.
Lots going on
Monday.
already
like,
for you.
We're gonna fire it up and see if the old ticker can take it. All right, let's take a break and then hit the draft. All right, welcome back. We have some news. Developing news. I'm Tom Brokaw. We have a trade. We have a trade in the draft to announce. It involves the old Zeuser, Dan Zeus. That's me. And the Quiet Storm. Mark, you were slated to pick first overall, but you have agreed to terms on the following trade. Mark surrenders his first overall pick and the 7th overall pick in exchange for the 3rd overall pick and the 4th overall pick in today's draft. So, Mark, unprecedented, will be drafting
Why?
3,
That's a good
4,
question.
Like what?
and 6. Dan will now be drafting 1, 7, and 9.
I'm a little worried about Mark here. Just like the competitive spirit, or just like what's going. You're a little like Urban Meyer not knowing his safety. It didn't seem like you were that involved in this trade. You were allowing any terms that Dan would dictate. I was
It was a very
listening
rough
to
comparison.
I was trying to explain it to him, but he didn't seem
He
very
didn't
interested.
seem to care. He was just like, take whatever you want. It was troubling.
Can I tell you why? Like, real quick, like there's not a lot of great games outside of the ones we just discussed, the island games. And I can look at 1 or 2 and say, I want that, but like everyone in the office is going to be watching that game. So it's like, it's not a singular experience. I enjoy the community aspect of it too, but it's more just like Dan was like, oh, wow, I want to like, I have my eye on something. It's like, take it. I don't want my eye on
you're
any
being a
of these
nice
games.
friend.
Being a good
You're a
guy.
nice friend.
You're being a class
You're
act.
right. You're right, though, that in terms of how the draft or the trade works, I have no idea where I'm picking and don't remember any of it.
It
so.
sets you up well in terms of no one's ever had 3 picks in the first 6 overall. So if you have a game plan here, it's really going to come
I think
through.
it's what Sashi Brown would do.
That was the developing news out of the Chris Wessling podcast studio.
It was like Belichick when he traded the second-round pick for Sanu. Whatever. Just take whatever you want. Just take whatever you want.
How happy I am on Sunday determines how well the trade was.
Okay.
We will see.
All right, so with the first overall pick in the Week 15 around the NFL podcast draft, I will take the Pittsburgh Steelers at home against the Tennessee Titans. Listen, the Steelers are interesting. We were just talking about the Vikings. Well, I don't know if the Steelers are interesting, but as I said it on the Thursday pod, they're kind of like a zombie that doesn't know it's dead. It's staggering around. No one's pulled off the kill shot yet. You know, everyone knows, classic zombie. Got to do a shot to the head, or it's going to keep coming.
Right. Follow the rules, please. Yeah.
No one's put the shot in the head yet, and the Titans, could they be that team? Titans fans all fired up. We're 9-4. We swept the Colts. Why are the Colts 8 in the power rankings and we're 12? Because you haven't been a good team for weeks. Because you won for the first time in a month last week against the Jaguars. And that's not your fault. You're playing your schedule, but I don't have to be impressed with 9-4 when you see how limited this team continues to be on the offensive side of the ball. Now, is that selling them short in terms of what they bring as a whole? Yes, but this is also an offensive league right now. And the fact that they struggle to score points week after week after week matters to me. I know it was a positive Sunday because you got the positive Derrick Henry news. You got Julio Jones back. You got the win. But at the same time, do I think they're going to win in Pittsburgh with Pittsburgh in a desperate situation? I don't.
You don't? You think the Steelers will win?
I think the Steelers win this game.
It's a tough one. 'Cause it's a real test of like the Mike Vrabel magic, kind of what he does well. They've been greater than the sum of their parts. Defensively, I think they come up. They're a good game plan team. They're very different every week. That's how they can have a game like the one they had against the Rams. And you would think that they'd be able to expose some of the Pittsburgh offensive problems like Mike Zimmer did a week ago. But man, are they slow on offense. Julio doesn't have that juice. The running game was back a little last week, but they're just so slow. It's just like two really slow teams. I have no idea who's going to win this game, but man, I love that under. Like, I just don't think
bang the under.
I just don't think either of these teams is getting over 16 points. I just don't.
I think if it happens, it would have to look a little bit like last week, where you get a lot of contributions from the defense. I mean, that game was 20-0. It felt like 60-0, and they got just enough from their offense. Guys like Donta Foreman, and I mean, it's a preseason roster trying to cobble by, and Julio Jones is not saving them from what I saw.
So Gravedigger, obviously Gravedigger, Titans Film Room, check out his podcast. This guy knows his stuff with Tennessee. Certainly knows more about the team than I do. So tell me what I'm missing when I kind of disregard your team on some level.
Well, I don't know what you're necessarily missing. I'd like to just say to all Titans fans on Twitter, there's no need to come after Dan for his...
Oh, they could bring it. They don't scare me.
Power rankings.
What about the BTS fan base? They also have been coming to Dan.
Dan's a little worried about that.
That's a little
I don't
different.
Know if
That's actually an army.
I don't know if I have any sway over what they do.
I think
but
very in a nice way, because Gravedigger's a really nice guy. Replied to something Titans related on Twitter that I posted yesterday, and then some other Titans fan rolled in right behind Gravedigger and was just like, "F you, Dan." It's like, oh, all right, nice knowing you. Anyway, Gravedigger, but do you like the Julio Jones coming back? That's fine, but you kind of need A.J. Brown. What else does this team need, do you think, to get back to where a team that really could go up against anybody in the AFC?
Yeah, I think getting Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown back will obviously be huge. I don't know if it's necessarily that simple because I'm still concerned watching the Titans about the pass protection. It feels like
their O-line has stunk all year.
Yeah, and Tannehill is taking, and this happened last year, but it would be when he'd connect on like a 45-yard bomb. He's just getting harassed back there.
He's a tough dude.
Yeah, he is.
Tannehill does not get enough
that's why
credit
they love him. They love
him
him in that locker room because of that.
But the offensive line, the disparity between run blocking and pass blocking is really just astounding to me because they run block very well, but then they can't pass protect. It's like one person loses a one-on-one matchup or they leave a tight end with the opponent's best pass rusher for some reason, and he gets beat one-on-one. And like Julio Jones was wide open down the field on, I think it was a post corner kind of fake out route, and Tannehill could have hit him, but he was immediately under pressure and sacked on the play, and so that explosive's gone. So the offense is not producing explosive plays at all.
But that matches up well with the Steelers' defense because they have struggled against the run for a while.
Right.
We saw the Vikings light them up, and there is something about this Titans team, and I think it's some sort of similar DNA. That Vrabel's a good coach. You can't exactly see exactly why, but they are greater than their some of their parts, and they've been motivated all year ever since Urban Meyer, came onto our show early in the season and just totally dismissed the Titans before the year.
The Titans are 3 offensive players and Mike Vrabel's haircut.
I mean,
well, see, that's he did not do his homework.
I guess that's why Vrabel didn't shake his hand after the game.
So
That
Cotty.
makes sense. How unlikable. Urban Meyer, totally unlikable dude. One last thing before we move on or have any other Steelers conversation. Got any plans this weekend, Justin?
Let's go.
I'm moving tomorrow.
Ice skating in the park?
I'm moving apartments tomorrow, so that's a huge plan. And
Getting any help on that move?
Or to whose apartment?
Are you christening the new place?
I probably will have a friend over tomorrow. Yes, but can I say something about this? I've been thinking a lot about this.
Okay.
I feel like she would not like it if I continued to talk about this on the show.
I think that's accurate.
Stunner.
And I
Shut
think
up, Greg.
just like I want to be a good person, and I want to feel good about myself. And I apologize to the Reddit audience who's very invested in this story. I will give you guys an update.
I mean, they're not more invested than the host of our show who just clapped like a 6-year-old. So excited when he heard the news.
We're just hanging out. We're just friends. And if that changes, I will update you.
You know what? I respect you as a man. I'm disappointed as a podcast host because I wanted to have every step of this relationship documented, and now I have regrets. Did I come on too strong in terms of getting information out of Justin?
You have the regrets.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's more. I do hope you provide an update in time if you are allowed, because it still feels very mysterious to me and alluring.
I will provide
Mark
an update.
needs this too.
As
You
soon
Yeah,
as
you
an
can do it
update
off
happens.
air.
And I'll
off
tell
air
you guys
tomorrow.
more details off air. How about that?
All right, good. But
I also
she's-
did tell you, by the way, on our TNF recap that the Steelers were impregnated by with a baby of Satan. So good luck to you and enjoying seeing how that goes for them.
Okay.
Don't you recall that?
I do vaguely recall, but I do want to just say, now that it's officially hit his music, by the way, he said we can't talk anymore about it, at least until he brings it up again. But you did catch that little nug. She's coming over this weekend.
Well, he said a friend, but
And do you see the way I set it up? Is anybody, you christening the apartment?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she is coming over. Just leave it at that.
yeah, I feel like we're talking about it again. But
No, but that was his information. So I was just,
We're going out with a bang,
so there. All right, let's, Steelers, we got that. Let's move on. We got to keep moving.
Yeah.
There's too many games. All right, up next in the draft. Now, again, this is a little funky now because that huge trade that went down. Greg, you remain locked into that second overall spot.
Very strange. You did take the game I was going to take. You took the Romo game, so I will give you kudos to that. I'm going to take the Rams Seahawks in the late afternoon. Oh. See, I guess I took Mark's pick here. You did have the number 1 overall pick, and you provided no resistance.
The good news is you do have 3, 4, and 6.
I'm redoing the draft board as we speak. So
I mean, you had an opportunity to hold on to that pick. It's a huge game because it knocks the Seahawks out, in my mind, and in reality, if they lose this game, it's a lot for the Rams to overcome in terms of their COVID situation. We don't know if players like Jalen Ramsey will be back that missed Monday night's game, but we do know a lot more Rams players went on the COVID list throughout the week. 2 of their safeties, including Jordan Fuller, who's their defensive captain, and Odell Beckham. So that's a lot to overcome, but we found out on Thursday that Tyler Lockett's out for this game, and Alex Collins, who's not a big factor, is also out. And I was thinking of this kind of as division battle. It's a last stand for Seattle. It's the Rams trying to solidify and show that they're going to the finish line, kind of like the Bucs were a year ago. And it was really all about Russ Lockett, and DK, because the rest of this Seahawks team is just not special. It's not special, but they got enough coaching and enough, okay enough rotational play that if those 3 dudes just come out and ball out against the Rams defense, I'm not convinced is amazing, especially not with the people they're missing. You can go win that game, and now without Lockett, once again, COVID hurting our Sundays.
It really is.
And much more.
It's like we just found that out before.
I knew you were going to cover yourself there.
I'm just saying,
I cannot be flippant about COVID.
No, it's not that. I also am confused, too, because I thought they were only testing vaccinated guys on Monday, so that's why there's this, deluge of, positive results Monday and Tuesday. But who knows?
We know Lockett is vaccinated.
Knows? I guess I don't know that.
Anyway, thoughts?
I'm trying to think of a team that has come off a win this year that did more for their image, and I'm not saying that it's hollow. It's totally tangible and real. But people, listening just to other people talking radio in general, here in LA, the vibe around the Rams is suddenly so incredibly positive that this COVID thing really is the only thing that could downgrade it to some degree. What they did to the Cardinals, we talked about it, but if you're going to get games like that down the stretch where Matthew Stafford is as comfortable as he's been in a Rams outfit, and you've got your stars playing the way they played against an excellent team in Arizona, they appear relatively unstoppable. And I was going to lock this thing up for the Rams. I moved off it just because of the shaky COVID thing. But I can't think of too many more teams I have faith in handling their business down the stretch. I just have come.
That's a pretty quick turn.
It is a quick turn because I've come.
Is this because Kara Henderson tweeted at you that she didn't like all the negative things that were going on?
Well, no, she's annoyed with me. But even
don't let that change your viewpoint.
No, it isn't, because even it that came after I said something positive about Aaron Donald. Like she
Kara
said,
Henderson, by the way, is the wife of the Rams general manager Les Snead, and she's also a former colleague of ours and a very nice woman,
a wonderful person.
I'm wondering if your comments right now are directly tied to that.
No, I think I was going to lock up the Rams because I have no faith in the Seahawks. I think that we're cooking up this narrative that they're still alive. Well,
because they are. It's not a narrative.
They're alive if they win this game. This is a tough place to go win. But if they
I
win
don't
this
take
game,
them seriously if they win this game with 16 players on the Rams.
But
COVID
if they win
list,
this game, they're scheduled the next 2 weeks, 2 very winnable games before they play the Cardinals in Week 18. I think if they win this game, they get to Week 18 with a chance to make the playoffs.
Does it not? But I guess where I'm ready just to say, like I do for some of these teams, then go do it. But it's I'm not caught up on the mathematical procedures.
They got to do it. They got to do it. But they beat the 49ers. This has been a terrible matchup for Pete Carroll versus Sean McVay. Sean McVay's owned him in general. So it would say a lot if they could go win this game without Lockett, too.
This is their season for Seattle because and not having Lockett, he's so important to what they do. And it's been a very up and down season, to say the least, for DK Metcalf. He's banged up, I believe, as well on top of it. But him and Russell Wilson have not been able to get on the same page. Wilson, I don't know if you guys noticed, and you're watching that game on Sunday, repeatedly feeding Metcalf. And, there's a human element to this. He knows it's been a frustrating season for his most talented wide receiver, you could argue. So he's trying to get him that touchdown, forcing throws, and he just still couldn't make it happen. I think he had 12 targets in the game. But if Seattle loses this game, goodbye. You're 5-9. But yeah, if they find a way to win, there's a very decent chance they are playing for a playoff spot in Week 18, which no one would have predicted. The Rams just got to take care of business. And Aaron Donald, we talked about it, how the way he took over that Monday night game in a game they desperately needed to change the vibe of their season. I got a feeling he could kind of just snowball right into just kicking the crap out of the Seattle offensive line and making life hell for Russell Wilson. Can't you see Wilson running for his life and taken down a couple times by Donald?
The Rams have dominated the Russell Wilson Seahawks.
Largely because of Aaron Donald.
Yeah, and even before Sean McVay was there, so there's something to that.
All right, up next in the draft, there he is with his first pick as a result of that blockbuster trade, Mark Sessler.
Well, I love what I've gotten here. I'm going Atlanta at San Francisco in that late game slot. I know Greg wrinkled his nose. He doesn't like that game, but you know what? I like the 2 games prior, too, so I'm taking what I can. And
I buy it because you've been pushing the Atlanta Matters narrative, and you love your Niners.
And San Francisco. The Atlanta Matters narrative, this to me, I'm trying to find a way to better describe these 2 teams. The 7-6 Niners are 8th in team DVOA. The 6 and 7 Falcons, who keep hanging around, are dead llast.
Negative 108 point differential.
They just look like it a lot, and then sometimes they don't, because it's like they're also a team that's 5-2 on the road and they were winless at home. Their running game has improved over the last couple of weeks. 3 straight 100-plus games on the ground. We saw them, affect that Tampa Bay game that way. They're getting they're getting a few more plays on defense in terms of some pick sixes and stuff. So they're just a strange team. And Arthur Smith did have this warning for the rest of the league that Dean Pease.
Ooh, Artie's got a warning to tell the rest of football.
Dean Pease hasn't even scratched the surface, he said, of what he's going to install here. I'm not sure when we're installing said stuff. Maybe that's in the offseason. But I don't know how you slow down the Niners if you get the version of George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel. I would like to see Samuel used a little bit more in the passing game. They've kind of gone away from that. But there's your 3 dudes. And if you get the mistake-free version of Jimmy, or at least keep it to a low, they can take care of business here and stay alive.
I trust Dean Pease. Dean Pease is a great defensive coach.
He is.
I think they've been a really well-coached team. I guess that's why we've enjoyed them. I think they've maximized what they can, getting to 6 and 7. Russell Gage is suddenly a really good, fantasy players know this, but like a really good slot receiver. I don't think it's that fluky, but they've built an offense out of Matt Ryan, who is, I got to admit, even though I enjoy what he's doing every week and I appreciate like his moxie, he is getting close to that Chad Pennington, Peyton Manning line where the lack of arm strength is almost too much to overcome. They're 6-4 in their last 10 games. They bounced back after that 0-3 start, but the 49ers have been rather consistent now for 5 weeks. It's a hard matchup to imagine that the offensive line, especially for San Francisco, just doesn't mow them over.
And I'm with you, Mark, and I say this also as a Deebo Samuel fantasy owner. A little weird that he was like breaking every receiving mark. He was ahead of Jerry Rice pace for the first 9 weeks of the year as a wide receiver. And it's almost like now he had 1 catch last week.
Yeah,
and
he's been
moved
taken
into
out of that part of the game.
And I don't know, I guess it's a little surprising that he's not more of a hybrid and now he's being used primarily as a running back. I think maybe health issues in the backfield play a role in that for sure. But I just want to see what Kittle does. George Kittle, and he's banged up again, and that's just part of the thing with Kittle. As long as you can keep him healthy and upright, he's going to change game plans because he became the first tight end ever to have back-to-back 150-yard games with a touchdown.
Yeah. And the best play, I think, in those 2 games was that, maybe not the best because, man, he had a lot of good ones, but that 3rd and 5 play to keep the drive going in overtime. I think it was the play right before Ayuk's touchdown where Jimmy G hit it into a tiny window. Jimmy G, who had a below average game even for Jimmy G until overtime, had one of the best drives of his career, doing things he doesn't normally do, hitting a throw outside the numbers to the outside, hitting that 3rd and 5 to Kittle into the smallest window possible, and then they get the game winner with Ayuk. That was an awesome moment, I think, for the 49ers. I think they keep rolling and are quite dangerous.
I mean, Jimmy G also had a near pick in overtime that would have changed everything we're saying about Jimmy G this week.
Regulation, I think that. Right
end of
before,
regulation, yeah.
That's sports. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll be back. All right, here we go. Mark, slithers to you.
I got another game I want. I'm beyond critique. I am going Cardinals at Lions.
Spin, baby, spin.
I don't need to spin anything.
Hey,
That's
if you
just
can get the
simply
Lions
truth.
in the first round, you got to do it.
I'm getting the Cardinals in the first round because you know what I want to see is the other thing is are the Cardinals able to
you'll learn a lot about the Cardinals this week.
Well, when the lights are too bright, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals can't hang around. Well, you know what? They did not get blown out on Monday night, by the way. Just an information factoid for you there, if that's what you think.
Hey, take the L. You had them locked up and they didn't show up in a big spot. That's all. Nobody thinks they stink,
I don't know.
I locked them up on a big. And their biggest 2 games, we each locked them up, and they lost both.
I don't know what
Packers.
people think.
Yeah.
T.J. Hawkinson out. The Lions, I don't say this they've been cute in a way where I respect them. They hang around in these games. But I'm one concern for Arizona. DeAndre Hopkins, we learned in between shows, is going to have knee surgery. He's going to miss it at least the regular season, and we'll see. James Conner's a little banged up, but this team to me has bounced back as well as anyone off of the few losses they've had. And I think it's a week for Kyler Murray to say, put me back in that MVP race. I had one bad game, just like every other quarterback out there.
I like the Cardinals, not as much as you, Mark. I like them, but I think the Hopkins thing is big. And I know he came back. He missed a bunch of weeks, and when he came back, he wasn't really the same guy. But now that we know that he's not even going to be there at all, I think it moves everybody up in the pecking order. And I think, for instance, a guy like A.J. Green or a guy like Rondell Moore, like these are all guys like in their spots, they were thriving. But if you ask them to be something they're not at this stage of their career, it could lead to more issues for the offense. So I was hyper impressed by James Conner. I can't believe how good that guy's been this year. So he's going to continue to be an important thing and helping Kyler Murray. But removing his number one wide receiver from the mix, I think it's going to cost them games and cost them the number one seed.
I do think that Zach Ertz, though, and he was there mostly through Murray's injury. That was another nice Steve Keim addition who's quietly done an awesome job.
This is their last just like layup. They have the Colts, at Dallas, and then the Seahawks. Just because it's a division game and everything. That's difficult. I think they've got some big problems in terms of their interior offensive line in general. This is not the week for it. Shout out, though, to Craig Reynolds last week. Coming off the practice squad and running pretty well. It was like a depressing Monday transaction when I saw they had put him back on the practice squad. I was like, he was your best player on Monday. That's not nice.
Yeah,
Bring back Craig.
DeAndre Swift, he's been a breakout guy for them. What do you get from playing him at this point? Let's stay in that number one pick.
Right.
Yeah.
I know we should move, and we will quickly, but the Lions have $48 million of their salary cap on injured reserve and $65 million in dead cap money. They are like trotting out a team that is essentially free. Like
it's
like insane.
That's tough for
it's
victories.
$100 million.
All right, Greg, the draft moves to you, and guess what? Mark Sessler's on deck. This is historic.
That's how this works. I think this, history will smile on what's happened here.
We will find out Sunday night.
Okay. I will not be thrilled about these early games here. I still need my number one pick. Shook's in the mix. This is annoying.
It's not Shook's fault. The way that you phrased that
Big
makes
Ben,
it sound
what do you
like
think about where Greg is right now as he really struggles to pick?
Well, I'm trying not to take Shook's games so that there's not too much carryover. I'll take the Cowboys-Giants just to watch the Cowboys. Again, this NFC East round robin is ugly. It's the division that is playing each other the most down the stretch.
Hey, nobody gets on a play. Okay.
Why did I take this game?
You can back out.
You can back out.
No, it's fine.
All right, you're in now.
Or I could trade you for it.
Don't do it.
I could just pick the same game as Shook. Would be fine because someone's going to have to anyways, now I realize. But this Giants team is dead on arrival, and that really, like, if you think about the way this season set up, for whatever reason, all the divisions are backloaded, but the NFC East is by far the most. All of their, like the Eagles and Washington, basically all four of these teams is almost all in the division down the stretch, and that's perfect for Dallas because this Giants and Washington teams are hurting right now, and the Dallas defensive line can win games by themselves. I think their defense with Gregory and Gallimore and Lawrence all back to complement Parsons is just like next level. And the whole next month for the Cowboys is about finding what is right again about their offense because it's just not right.
Listen, the Giants are the perfect opponent. In the first half last week here in Los Angeles, where the Giants got waxed by the Chargers, Justin Herbert and their offense rolled up 289 yards, 18 first downs, and 24 points in the first two quarters. If the Cowboys don't do the same thing, you really have to maybe go up a level in terms of your panic level about what's going on with the quarterback and the offense. Zeke Elliott says he feels much better, and we'll see if that translates to him being an actual high-end running back again. But I really do. It's gotten to the point now where it's like I feel confident the Cowboys will get the 10 wins and win that division. But for me to see them as a real Super Bowl contender again, the offense has to come to life.
Yeah, because as much as the Dan Quinn defense has evolved into something kind of terrifying, which I think is an incredible development for Dallas, like it's the offense that we believe taking them deep into wherever they go. I mean, I don't love that like Tyron Smith is dealing with an ankle right now. He's out. Tony Pollard is banged up. I mean, so you're going to have to just get through some of that stuff. But they've not been, if you look at Dak's splits with and without Tyron Smith, they're alarming. So
they've been like the thing is like they've been fairly healthy. I know.
I don't
Cowboys,
know. He missed. Like he didn't have Amari
Cowboys
for a
fans
game.
will point out like,
CD?
You missed 2 or 3 games here, 2 games here. I'm just saying compared to the average team out there's been so many injuries, so many good offensive teams like Arizona, for instance, have withstood bigger injuries or bigger swaths of the line gone, and they've looked better. Dak has definitely not been the same. I do wonder if like we overrate the first month of the season because it's a first impression. When really smart guys like Steve Weiss pointed out to us, like defenses are just catching up. Like the league is totally different in that first month.
There's no preseason
and it's
really
like,
anymore.
We're still kind of stuck on this idea that the Chiefs defense, for instance, feels flukier because they were so bad for that first month. But it's like, no, this is the time that matters, and they've been great for 2 months when it matters. The reality is the Cowboys have been mediocre for 2 months offensively, and that the names, they're big names, but they just haven't been great for such a long time.
Well, it's like 3 or 4 seasons packed into one, and this is a
Right.
different team than we were dealing with in September.
All right, let us move on. We are back to Mark Sessler.
Well, I also don't want to – I like Shook to have his own game so that he can come on and do his Shook thing. So I'm going to go with a game that, along with maybe 12 other Americans I'll be watching, it will be Houston at Jacksonville. 13 of us will be. Now this is how
that was what I was going to
well,
take.
because there's not much out there, and I'm not doing the double late game. I like to have my days start to get less convoluted at that point. Thank you very much. I mean, it is a fascinating game in the sense that for the first time all season, the Houston Texans, which have been a as low a Q rating operation as you can find, can look across the field and say, "Look at us, we're functional." Because that's how you feel compared to the Jaguars. And I just want to see how the Jaguars players respond because I know, Greg, you're big on this too. Like when you go from coach gets canned, and in this case, it's not like we were really fighting for this guy, but now, we're dropped off into abyss. It's like that locker room is probably on fire and thrilled with what's happened. And then maybe you get a spicy version of the Jaguars because all I would say is their defense especially has been good in a couple games. They've shown things. I have nothing else to say about this game other than that, and I may say nothing about it on Sunday night, depending on what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game between 2-11 teams. It does have, obviously, draft ramifications. But most importantly, I want to say that weather can be an issue in this game. And you might want to get out your umbrellas because Greg has already called it. The Rainmaker said, get your money.
What is with this terrible picture?
Get your money out and get behind the Houston Texans. Do you still feel that way? Does the Rainmaker, Greg, still feel like the Texans are the team?
I mean, I would not have been as excited about it if I knew that they were getting rid of Urban Meyer because Urban
Look at
Meyer
this monster behind
and
Greg.
the misery. This is ridiculous.
I mean, this is, if you haven't watched our YouTube show, and I'm sure Ricky will make this a social component,
right.
The graphic that we have celebrating the Rainmaker's return to the show is just
and I look like a
selling it.
jackass because I'm texting while this thing starts, but it's only because my computer's not working right now, and I was sending a message to Ricky. It was part of the job. This picture is terrible. Everything's terrible. I thought it was one of my favorite picks
Well done, Erica.
possible when it was Texans plus 3.5, and Urban Meyer was coaching. They've scored, Trevor Lawrence has thrown for 1 touchdown since the bye week. That was 7 weeks ago.
Oh, my God.
But I really do kind of believe in the dead coach bounce. It's Spice Rack's favorite thing. If you look back last year, Darrell Bevell.
It's your new Twitter avatar, by the way.
Darrell Bevell. Remember when he took over last year for Matt Patricia? You know what happened in his first game?
He won?
He won.
Yeah.
They didn't win for the rest of the season, but he won. Do you remember who the Houston Texans' interim head coach was last year, Mark?
Not at all.
Because I don't.
I don't remember anything from last year.
The Texans interim coach.
When they fired Bill O'Brien.
Oh, it was Romeo Crennel.
That's right.
I feel like Romeo Crennel has been an interim coach like 6 times.
You know who won his first game last year?
Romeo.
Romeo did. And then they didn't win a game the rest of the season. It is kind of wild.
So the Rainmaker's moving off it.
I'm going to just stick with it at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's too late. But I wouldn't have gone. You know what's funny, though? There's so many people that believe in the dead coach bounce.
So the Rainmaker's going against it.
That the line actually moved up. The Jaguars were 3.5-point favorites. Now they're 5-point favorites. So people think that Urban Meyer is worth negative 1.5 points.
I think that's in this specific case, that feels super legit.
It's kind of amazing. So hopefully you didn't do it right away, and you can get all 5 of those points.
My favorite bounce, though, still is the Spice Rack social disharmony bounce. That one I really like.
What does that posit?
It just feels that the point is I locked it in last Sunday, so it was too late. You already put your money down. What are you gonna do?
This is like the 6th iteration of this graphic that was made, and a text from Dan that I got yesterday was, "You see what I'm going for? ? Just a monster." And then another text, "Something that wants to die but cannot."
Look, see him? Like, look how the money, like, he vomits all the cash. Like, he's like, "Kill me."
I don't know where this picture came from.
Oh, it came from you sitting on the NFL Now set.
I understand
it's
that.
It's the tie and glasses day. Iconic.
Who took it, and why am I frowning in the free?
I think it was a
All
screen
I know
grab.
Is that, Erica believes it's the worst picture I've ever taken, and that's why she's used
It's
it
not the best.
75 times since.
And our guy behind the scenes, Drake, who kills it on the video side, he put in a lot of work on that. Yeah, something, not that you're a monster, Greg, but I wanted the thing that was created here to be a monster that wants to die but cannot.
Well, you
all
know
it
what?
can do is make money.
You know, the Rainmaker, or at least the game picks column, 12-2 last week, 20 over against the spread for the year, so that's solid.
Especially this year. Well done, Greg. All right, let's move on. Mark, you just did your pick. Is it back to the Zeus?
It's back to you.
Back to the Zeusa. All right, I will grab a late game here. Wait. Packers at Ravens is available?
That's essentially like the Tom Brady in this draft, sort of just sitting
What?
there. I don't know what Greg was doing.
What a steal!
Well, I had a late game that I preferred.
How is that still there?
Because Mark's strange.
No, because
Yes!
I took
I
a
don't
late
need-
game already, and then you're not going to take the two best late games, so it's all on Mark.
Right, but you
I
don't.
preferred
You're
mine.
the only one that wants it, so I guess it's.
Yeah, but you took Houston, Jacksonville over Lamar Jackson, hopefully,
I don't
versus
need
Aaron
to see.
Rodgers.
There is personal taste involved.
That is the greatest steal in the history
Per
of this
you.
draft.
Per you.
No, well,
I agree,
per
so that's
society.
majority.
A steal would be like had I wanted it and you stole it from me.
No, I'm the tiebreaker. Dan's right.
Wow.
But then
And
you
that's
stole
all
it
luck.
from Greg though, because Greg just simply didn't see that it was sitting out there.
No, I had a late game, so I had the other best late
I
game
have a late
that
game,
I
too.
preferred, but
Hey, just give it to me. It was a great steal. I didn't try for it. I whiffed on it.
I am just saying this draft otherwise has gone exactly as I hoped it
I
would.
whiffed on it.
right, you're like the
Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks being like, hey, we wanted to take that guy you've never heard of with the 29th pick. Like, that's what we want.
That's
it's like,
exactly
that's
right, Greg.
great. And then that player is inactive in his second
Whoa.
season.
I mean, I am going to
It's
be
like
sitting
LJ
3 feet
Collier.
away from Dan, listening to him shout about this game the entire time anyways, so I will be watching it. What is the difference?
You had the 3, 4, and 6.
Right, he
and
had
I
3
still come
picks.
out of it with the game of the week. So Packers at Ravens. Whoa.
I should have taken that.
And here we are
ultimately.
now.
That was a mistake.
I'm surprised, Greg. I'm surprised.
It is on Greg.
The Green Bay Packers playing awesome football right now. So fun. Greg, you nailed the initial analysis last week that, hey, you had your chance. You had your chance to get the Packers when they were a team that was going to win most of their games, but you would basically be within a score at any point, and you make a play there, make a play here. You could still win against Green Bay. But now it's different. Now you have a top 10 defense for Green Bay with the best quarterback in the world back on his MVP game. So you could put those two things together. That's why they're number 1 in the power rankings. That's why they're 10-3, and that's why I think Baltimore is in a lot of trouble, even if they have Lamar Jackson. And he was supposed to practice on Thursday and did not. Like, they were hopeful that he was going to practice today, Thursday. He did not. So now you have to wonder about Jackson's availability on that ankle. They said it's not a high ankle sprain, but they lie. They always lie.
Greg Roman said it was going to go down to the wire. I kind of liked Tyler Huntley last week for as little as he's had a chance to play. He was, I mean, it is a massive downgrade.
Yeah.
It's just that
he was great.
He is like you don't want him.
I mean, he
starting the
scored
rest
more
of the
points
year.
per drive than Baker did in that game. They were moving the
But
ball.
that's a separate argument. I'm
Right.
comparing him to Lamar, not Baker Mayfield. Give me a break. But like my concern for either quarterback is the tackle play for Baltimore right now. It's been bad. I mean, it's caused issues for Lamar, and it caused issues for Tyler Huntley a week ago, and you got a good pass rush coming in.
I read something this morning, great piece in The Ringer by Stephen Ruiz, about why can't the Ravens shake out of this offensive slide? And the basic conceit of it was maybe it's Greg Roman's fault. Maybe this run-heavy scheme where they load up with a fullback and they only have 2 wide receivers on the field it puts Lamar into really bad situations where defenses load up the box, and they don't ever get burned on it because they don't have a scheme that allows them to attack in the passing game because of the way they run their offense. Now, the one thing, and again, I thought it was a really good piece, the one thing that I noticed was curiously missing was any talk about, well, is the reason why they have not moved away from the scheme is that they don't think that Lamar can run a traditional, closer to a pro-style passing offense. Is that something that the reason Baltimore has been slow to move off that isn't because of being stubborn, but because they don't think that's the best use of Lamar? My point on this, though, ultimately is they need to try to mix things up with their structure. Maybe they can't, but they have the weapons. They have Hollywood Brown. They have Sammy Watkins. They have Rashad Bateman. They have Mark Andrews. When are they going to open this thing up? Is it not that easy in the middle of a season? But if it is something where it's an adjustment that can be made, it's now time to do it because we've seen enough of this offense where it ain't working.
But I would just say their pass protection has been a massive issue. Like, I mean, I don't know what you're suggesting they do, throw the ball another 15 times a game, but like that's people have been stymieing.
It's not
Lamar
just throwing the ball;
pass.
it's the formations that they're throwing the ball out of.
They still kind of look like a power running team, which is ultimately reliant on Lamar's athleticism. Yeah, they often allow the unblocked rusher to get through, and hey, Lamar, go beat him, and we've got advantages in terms of the numbers. That would be tough to reshape in the middle of the season, especially they lost their right tackle, Patrick McCarry, who had been playing really well. I kind of came into the week thinking, like, man, if ever there was like a spot, it's a non-conference game, the Packers are on the road, it's like they're flying high. Like, if ever there was a spot for like an organizational surprise, like the Ravens stand up and like get an upset, like it just felt like that sort of moment. And Lamar has this great game, but his injury has me worried. And Mark, you mentioned the Packers pass rush. It's been so good. Without Zadarius Smith, it's so good right now. So that matchup, and then you think of the matchups on the outside when Aaron Rodgers has the ball, the starting cornerbacks for Baltimore are Anthony Averett and Chris Westry. And I think like we're so used to the Ravens losing players that Humphrey was just like another one to lose. But that's where we talk about clusters again. Humphrey and Peters now. You had these two great cornerbacks. Now you have zero great cornerbacks and a team that's like relying on blitzing. It's just a lot going wrong. It would be like one of the best wins of John Harbaugh's career if they could win this game.
That part of it, I think, fries Baltimore. I mean, they're the 31st ranked pass defense, and a lot of it has to do with just lack of availability of who they win into the season with. Stealing a game would matter. I mean, the rest of Baltimore's schedule, I know that they're sitting atop the division, but at Cincinnati, versus the Rams, and then versus Pittsburgh.
Oh, the sky's falling there. Baltimore fans and radio, they're not convinced that this Ravens team is going to necessarily make the playoffs.
I also think with the Greg Roman thing a little bit, that's who Greg Roman has been. Like, they went through this whole metamorphosis to shape it around Lamar, and I think with the players that they have out, like to go shift it to something completely different, I'm not sure they have the right people in there to do that.
It's another thing when you look back, at this point, I've been holding on maybe too long to those first 5 weeks because they were different. They were a vertical passing game. And you mentioned more of a pro style, a little more conventional, Dan. I see that. But he is a pocket quarterback. Like, they could do that. I don't know if you can do that in the middle of the season. Like, most of his success as a quarterback has been from the pocket. Like that.
And he played in college at Louisville in a passing offense. So, we keep on hearing about this cover 2 shell that's shutting down Kansas City and Buffalo. The cover 2 invert is what you got to keep an eye on. That's killing the Ravens. It's very interesting, like the way, but the basic thing is like where you drop the 2 cornerbacks back and then you have the safeties and everybody's just like crowding up and there's just no space to operate for Baltimore. And it's interesting because they're running with the fullback there, with the running back there, and it's all set up for the running game. But because they've revealed like kind of who they are, it's always crowded down there. And that's why we're not seeing any of that like Lamar Jackson big running plays anymore.
They're a great coaching staff, but great coaching staffs need to adjust. And maybe it's just too hard with all these injuries, and it just wasn't going to happen. They are a good example, I believe, that, hey, it's like running backs do matter to the point that that you need to have, like in an offense like this, there's a reason why they drafted
J.K. Dobbins
that high.
Mark Ingram a couple years ago was perfect for them.
I really do think that the drop-off at running back has really been significant for them, that it's really hurt them.
Mark, cover 2 invert.
I want you to
I know all
break
about it,
that
so.
down a little more, Dan.
Well, usually you have the 2 safeties deep.
Okay.
In this defense, you have the corners deep, so they take care of anybody on the Jets. And you send the safeties into the flat, or you either pinch them on the run,
game. They're a little
or
better.
you send them into the flat, and they're more sure-handled tacklers. They can handle things in that realm. And then you have the box obviously stuffed up as well. So that's the cover 2 invert in a nutshell, Greg. By the way, speaking of in a nutshell.
You couldn't fit that in a nutshell. That was a lot of information.
We have a lock to talk about for this game before we move on.
Hello, heroes. Phil here again this week. I guess nobody else wanted to do the recording, so I'm doing it again. This week, we're going with the Green Bay Packers over the Baltimore Ravens. Aaron Rodgers is on fire, and we don't even know if Lamar's going to play. Nick says it doesn't pass the mirror test, but I don't care. Lock it up.
I like it. Shortened to the point there by Phil.
And Nick,
it does pass.
Calm down with the mirror test. It's like a 4.5 point spread.
Oh, yeah,
it's
that
fine.
definitely
it's
passes.
Fine.
5.5 right now.
Plus,
but,
like, it is the Ravens. The Ravens, they deserve a
at
little
home in an important game.
Organizational love.
They're 5-1 at home this year. They're one of the few teams that have had a home field advantage. I like that lock. By the way, if anyone's curious where we're at, the Wessling brothers are 7-7 this year. So it's been a kind of a middling year for them in their first year.
Speaks to their infighting and the way that they operate.
Right. That's but it's not. They're only 3 games out. Mark and I are 10-4, and the listeners are 8-6. And Ricky, it says 2-11, but like I'm saying, I think maybe you got to take that and maybe flip it. Maybe she's closer to like, I don't know, 7-6, something like that.
I think that's fair.
Even if it's not official, like we know.
You've done the Patriots great service.
All right, let's pause right here and take a break. We'll be right back. All right, let us move on. Wow, I can't believe that game went that late. It goes now to Greg with the penultimate pick in our draft.
Oh, wow. I'm going to take a late game. I know Mark doesn't want 2 late games. We want a happy Mark on Sunday. Cincinnati, Denver. Love these games. I love that the whole season is like a story, you know? And now we get to see, like, what's the ending of the story. And I know, you know, you're like in Mark's world, these 2 teams aren't going to win the Super Bowl. So does their story really matter?
Well, wait, who was more excited about the Bengals a week ago than I?
A couple weeks ago. You were so angry that they were losing to the Chargers only because you had a strong take about them, which I found I like that.
It's a window into the soul, and I
like that.
Well, it was the final nail in the coffin for me to realize I have no idea what's happening at all.
That's what did it.
We're all in the same boat.
No, I like that. Like if I was living and dying on our takes, like you just would be dying every week. Like how many times would I be dying? I think these 2 teams are interesting. I think there's a good chance, you know, one of these teams makes the playoffs here. I know you guys don't want to hear about it, but it's like Teddy Bridgewater has a pretty legitimate chance to be like starting that first Saturday, because the Broncos are going to be in that Saturday afternoon worst time slot playoff game if they're in it, most likely.
Yeah.
I feel like Teddy could be in this game. Like, we're going to find the end to this story. And when I look at the Broncos, I think there's at least a case to be made that this time of year is their chance to be their best they've been all year, because I think the defense for the last 5 or 6 weeks has gotten out of their funk, and the offense is at least healthier than it's been. And this Bengals team, on the other hand, there's something not adding up to me. Like, they're 21st in offensive DVOA. This is great talent. I think Joe Burrow's playing like a top 7 or 8 quarterback. To me, it comes to coaching where they're not maximizing their guys. And Fangio and Zach Taylor are 2 third-year coaches who have been around a little while. They're getting to the end here. I kind of trust Fangio a little more in this spot than I do the Bengals.
Zach Taylor is being put into a rough place this week. I think a lot of people feel like the way that you do, that some of the gamesmanship and decisions a week ago in that loss fell on coaching. And it's just like, let Joe Burrow go. Be Joe Burrow. And I would say, though, of these 2 teams, that the Bengals, when you get the good version, could go into the 7th seed or into a playoff situation and entangle with anyone.
They're more interesting.
They definitely are. And, their penchant for big plays just makes them watchable and extremely dangerous. And this is their season, I think, because they've got a rough slate, too. They've got Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cleveland after this game.
Yeah, give me a wild card Saturday that has Cincinnati and Minnesota both playing on the same day. That
Can't
would
go
be
wrong.
Fun. Give me that. We talked about, and to the point of some of the Zach Taylor criticism, we mentioned on Tuesday's show the run pass decision in overtime when they were 1st and 10 at the 26 in overtime. Jamar Chase was asked about that after the game, and Jamar Chase showed up and had a huge game in that loss. And when he was asked, why do you think you guys decided to run and get run heavy in that spot when you're moving the ball passing so well? And his response was, shoot. Good question, man. Good question.
Well, that's typically just like leaving the coach out, hanging him out to dry.
There's a guy I follow on Twitter, Ali Connolly, who's over in the UK. He's been on Mina Kimes' podcast.
Ali Connolly.
He described. He's much smarter X's and O's than I did, but he described the Zach Taylor offense as not really an off. And this kind of to me speaks to Zach Taylor, the coach. He doesn't really have the Zach Taylor offense. He just sort of grabs the greatest hits from all the other offenses, and to me that makes sense. There's something formless to me about this group, about this offense, and maybe I'm just biased and wanting to buy into this Broncos team one more time. But there's something there that I actually think the Broncos have forged some toughness throughout the course of this season, and their defense especially, I think, is finally showing up like we thought it might early in the year.
All right, up next, I think the final pick in the draft goes to the old Zeuser, and I will grab Jets at Dolphins story this week. Ringer doing some good NFL writing. Ben Solak wrote the first piece that I've seen, the first national piece. Zach Wilson's been bad. What does that mean for his NFL future? And I thought the timing was interesting because Sunday was the first day when I was thinking the same exact thing to myself. I was like, is this going to be okay? So that's where this Jet season, the rest of this week, or the rest of this year, now 3-10, 11 straight years without the playoffs. That's the longest streak in the NFL. It's is Zach Wilson going to show us something between now and week 18, or are we going to go into this offseason in a full-on, he's going to be on basically trial in his second year, because that's kind of how things work now. You don't get 4 years to figure it out typically. It's 2, and then it's decision time for these teams. So it happens quick. Zach Wilson, can you make progress here? Now, the Dolphins are a tough opponent to do it against. On the road, it's not going to make it easier for Zach Wilson. But the Miami team is another team that, all right, Zach Wilson, show me something. Miami, it's not like they have done nothing wrong. In fact, all they've done is win for a month and a half now. But I don't have to be excited about the Dolphins yet. I don't have to feel like they're a team I need to see as a contender in the AFC. Even if I know they're in playoff positioning, they still do not do it for me. Am I wrong to feel this way, that they're not excited? It's like you can only play your schedule, but this has been the softest schedule I ever remember a team getting for this amount of time.
I think it's fine to feel that way because we can't, either genuinely be excited or manufacture excitement over 32 different teams at the same time. It's a little too much, but I'm a little different than you on the Dolphins. That I just think that they went back to what I liked about them a year ago on defense and refound that identity. And if you look at Zach Wilson, he could look across the way at Tua, who coming into year 2 is draped with questions throughout his season, but has actually played, I think, quite well inside their system, and does not help that they won't have Jalen Waddle.
He is the system in a way that almost unlike any quarterback. They brought in his college coach. They're so RPO heavy. I think he's leads the NFL in yards, on run pass options by double any other quarterback, despite him, missing those games. He's really good at the short game stuff, and that's basically all they run. It's not aesthetically pleasing. So I totally get, Dan, why, defensively, yeah, they've turned it on. I think they were trying to do what they were doing a year ago. It just wasn't working for the first 6 or 7 games. They are incredibly aggressive defense, and now it's working. They're a tough defense to play against. And their offense is not fun to watch, but, Tua and Zach Wilson, there's a big dichotomy there. Tua looked like an NFL quarterback from day one. Zach Wilson has struggled to a degree that I thought, thinking, that during that game, of course you got to play him, but Should he, if he played 2 more starts like that, should he be playing football? Because it's not serving anyone.
Yeah, the way you could tell the game is not slowing down for him. You see it week after week. He doesn't process the game fast enough. And the only hope is that with reps and time and just going through the motions of being a young quarterback, that improves. But history is littered with guys that are top 5 picks, that you saw it immediately that the game wasn't really going to translate for them. And that's the only thing I'm nervous about. And I'm not saying that that he's doomed in my eyes, but I didn't even feel this way about Darnold. Darnold, I thought he was showing enough in his rookie year, especially near the end of that year. It was okay, there's something to build on here. With Wilson, there hasn't been much of a base here to get excited about. If you could have a couple quarters here and there where he got hot, but otherwise, any other quarterback that's on this roster has been better than him.
I think he's looked really concerning, but one difference between him and Darnold is everyone protected Darnold's play to such a degree because they had Adam Gase to blame everything on. I hear almost no blame for the Jets coaching staff, and I understand that Robert Saleh is someone that personality-wise we enjoy, but there's a lot to be said for how a couple other teams around the league have developed rookie quarterbacks. Look at Mac Jones. I understand it's
Part
New
of it
England,
is,
but
the numbers, they were literally top 10 in EPA without Zach Wilson. Josh Johnson looked pretty darn good.
I think Michael Flores is doing a good job.
Right, they played Flacco against the Dolphins last time because they didn't want to expose Wilson in the game. Now he has to play that game. Mike White had his moments. The other 3 quarterbacks all looked better.
The Mike White game that everyone went nuts over, wasn't he throwing 3 and 4 yard passes the whole time? I'm not taking that away from it. It's just
right.
that I'm not Zach Wilson needs more time, but it's not just a Zach Wilson isolated issue.
He needs an off-season reset, and maybe he comes back a different player. I've seen it happen with Eli Manning and Alex Smith. Those are 2 guys drafted just,
It's annoying.
The thing, though, is those guys were drafted, even at a time where, and I know it's a Manning brother, but, quarterbacks that are drafted top 5, 7, 8 these years should come in ready to go. College is different now.
Right. Dak, I think to Dan's point, he's at a level where it's among the worst of the worst, rookie seasons from quarterbacks. Doesn't mean there hasn't been cases where you don't bounce back. Those are 2 of them, Eli and Alex Smith. But more often than not, it's a pretty big red flag.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I'm not trying to ring the alarm bell too loud here, but I think their offensive line is not good, but it's okay. It's been good.
That's what worried me. Last week, their offensive line played great. The Saints don't have much of a pass rush. There was no pressure in that game. There was no pass rush in that game, Saints-Jets.
Do you want to know how many sacks George Fant has given up at left tackle this year? 1. The line has been okay. They're playmakers. They're not terrible. They have tight end issues, but they have some playmakers. They've had health issues. And the offensive play calling has not been bad. It was shaky early on, but I don't know how much of that is connected to them realizing how deep they were into it with the rookie quarterback being in over his head.
I'm worried about this week.
Anyway.
It could be.
Well,
Miami
I think we get it.
Is scary.
It's not something that I want to talk about, but I feel like it's something that should be stated at this point. All right. Let's see. That closes the draft. What do you have left?
Washington at Philadelphia and Carolina at Buffalo.
All right, Washington at Philly. Mark, you want to get us going there?
Well, it's along with the Browns Raiders game. What's happening to Washington is the centerpiece. They have right now a flood of players on the COVID list. They have a total of 30 players on COVID and IR. I think they've got something like 30-something active players to even put on the field. So this team that a couple weeks ago was a fun little factor in the playoff race is probably a sitting duck for Philadelphia. That, these guys play each other in a couple weeks, so it could look a lot different than at that point. I guess we don't know if Jalen Hurts is definitely going to play.
No, it sounded like he had a high ankle sprain, which they successfully shielded from the media for a while.
Which is funny because that's always the first question the media asks whenever anybody has an ankle issue.
And so this injury, which we didn't think was that serious, now it's coming on 3 weeks. It sounds like Minshew has a decent chance to play in this game. I don't think it matters. I would have loved to throw a little rainmaker fun on this earlier in the week. Even before the COVID stuff, it was at 5.5. The football team, it's now up to 9.5, and I'd still love the Eagles in this to go over that because the Eagles' defensive line is healthy. This Washington offensive line is not at all. And the level of COVID players and injuries to Washington is unlike, I think, anything that's happened to any team in the last 2 years. And I think people are getting wise to that. That's why a team like the Eagles are favored by 9.5. And even then, I don't think it's enough. Like, I think the Eagles could win this game by 20 or 30. The defensive line for Washington is down like 5 of their top
They've got 2 people.
players, but then just regular old injuries. Curtis Samuel is hurt. Terry McLaurin is coming off a concussion, might not play in this game. Like, they're so banged up, it just doesn't feel fair, and I don't think this will be
This
close.
stuff gets stupid at this point. Sorry. I mean,
And, if you're Gardner Minshew, you're thinking to yourself, okay, if I can just get a second start.
Especially in this matchup right now with the injuries.
I destroy Washington after I lit up the Jets. That's going to put the head coach in a tough position to take me out of the lineup. He had cover to defend his QB1 after one game, but if I do it 2 games in a row, it doesn't matter who I beat. But if I light up Washington, they might have to keep me a
if they
quarterback.
factor into the fact that, like, Greg and I are starting along Washington's defensive line by Sunday, but yes.
Right. I know it does feel like a little ghoulish sometimes, to make analysis like based off all this COVID stuff, but the check's deposit either way. I think it's going to be raining here on Sunday. I just want to see that graphic again. Let's see it. Let's bring it up. Eagles, let's do this.
You got to give our production team a little heads up on that, Greggy. There it is. Every moment I live is agony. There it is. There's the money just pouring out of his mouth. Like a 21-year-old on his birthday.
I can't wait to go 0-2 here and then put it back in mothballs.
Well,
finally, the Carolina Panthers at Buffalo Bills. All right, so
Skid City.
perfect spot for the Bills. I mean, you could not add the only better opponents really would maybe be the 2 teams playing each other, Jacksonville and Houston, maybe the Jets. But the Panthers are in that group as well, where it's like this is when you want to catch the Panthers. They are a sinking ship. They don't know what's going on. Their quarterback play has been off the charts bad for weeks. Christian McCaffrey is not only Christian McCaffrey is like, I'm already out for the year, but I got COVID too. Do not dare put me back in the lineup. I'll see you in 2022. So he is long gone out of the picture. And the Bills, who need a win in the worst way. If we were like those people that do their Sunday kickoff shows, and this drives me crazy when it's like, oh yeah, I have to lock a game. Oh yeah, Bills over Panthers. That's my lock. I mean,
the gutless locks.
Gutless locks.
Yeah.
That would be my gutless lock, is Bills getting the win they need because they opt to play the old Greg game that works. What makes more sense? The Bills coming out of this 7-7 and the Panthers 6-8, or the Bills getting to 8-6 and the Panthers continuing their fade to 5-9?
This is another one, like favorites late. I think finally we keep saying like we don't know anything, but the last couple of weeks, actually favorites have just keep winning, and I think the truly bad teams have shown themselves, and that's what you're doing. Like the line here is 10.5, and that doesn't seem nearly enough. And it's I know you're getting on the quarterback play, and that's what's getting attention. The Cam played pretty well for most of that game, except for the pick 6, I gotta say. But
well, how about the Dolphins game?
Not well. The defense.
Well, what about that terrible fumble at midfield that ended the game? Essentially,
he's been a liability.
That was a weird handoff play. You're right. I mean, it was a weird snap.
It's quarterback.
I'm just saying, I was expecting like a terrible game, and he was like 6 for 8 for 87. It was really just, if you took away the pick 6, he had a fine game. My point is the defense is not special at all. Like they can't get off the field. I thought they were going to be special. They're not at all. There's no reason they should slow down. And the interior offensive line for Carolina is unplayable. Rule has all this stuff about he wants to be a running team. Well, draft or develop a good offensive line or hire a good offensive line coach. They are one of their interior offensive line from the real tape heads like Baldy think are right there with Miami as like the worst in the entire NFL. I don't know.
I think it's just one of the most concerning.
Bills by 40.
One of the most concerning developments for what's happened to Matt Rule.
Oh, I like it. 3 picks from the Rainmaker.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, there you go. You got 3 picks. You want to pay for Christmas? You want to pay? Sorry. You want Santa to be taken care of financially?
This is like
follow the Rainmaker to the desert.
It's like a guest star coming back to a TV show, but then they like overuse him way too much, and everyone's sick of it.
It's a reboot, and let's hope you're not big at the end of that episode. Clutching your chest, laying in a shower stall. All right, there you go.
Spoiler.
I don't
Spoiler.
care. Apologies if anybody
Yeah.
hadn't seen episode 1 of the
Sex and the City
reboot.
I will definitely
called
not
again?
be
Here we
seeing
go
it,
again
but
or something?
I've heard this spoiler many times,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
Pretty big story.
And then it was.
Then there was
That was a catastrophic decision to make it that, because every single negative headline about this show is just, and then it was a piece of shit or whatever. It's like I've seen that sort of headline.
Good
a million
headline,
times.
though.
It's a
You got
bad
to give
job.
it to him. All right, so there you go. That is the Week 15 preview tonight. Greg Rosenthal, special guest.
Lakeisha Wesseling.
Oh, Quiche.
Big get.
In a big spot.
I like it.
Big
I
get in a
love
big
it. From
spot.
Wessling Manor?
That's right.
From Wessling Manor. That's pretty good. That's a good get. So Greg and Quiche will be handling the TNF recap of Chargers Chiefs. Check that out. And then Sunday night, we'll be back as a group to recap every game we just previewed. That's how it works. Make sure you check out the Around the NFL broadcast on NFL Network. You catch it streaming live on NFL.com Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. We've never plugged that before, but you can. You could we've literally never
should
said it
do that.
before. You could watch it live on NFL.com.
Hey, we're on a game day this week, I think, or I hope. It's a Saturday
that's
NFL Network game.
We should be checking that.
And then Saturday, maybe we'll be on TV because the time slot usually doesn't clash with football games because we're on at 4 a.m. here in California. On Saturdays, 4 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Eastern, the Around the NFL broadcast, 2 hours. We go around the NFL and hit every team in the league. So check that program out. We're proud of it. You like the podcast, you'll like the TV show. That's a promise. And if you watch the TV show like a year ago or 2 years ago and you're like, oh, it's not the same as the podcast. Well, first of all, up your nose with a rubber hose. Number 2, check it out now. Tell us what you think. Tell us, does it still feel that way
It's
to you?
been rebranded, and shame on you
Around.
if you've taken that much time in between
2
viewings.
minutes per team.
No
Every
judge. If
team-
you listen to the podcast, we love you.
I'll judge them just a little bit.
All right. I don't judge you. Mark judges you. But come back to the TV show. Give it a chance. You'll love it.
You can watch it on YouTube too. UK people that don't get NFL Network or can't see it on Sky, you can watch
Yeah.
it on
Well,
YouTube.
the numbers on
as
YouTube
well.
are they're insane.
They are. They're really well. They
Well,
it
it's-
does
they've been
well.
Yeah,
incredible.
check it out
We're
on
doing
YouTube.
big numbers. We're
Huge.
doing really big numbers
Yeah.
across the board.
Every team covered. So if you're just like a huge Falcons fan and even if you don't want to hear the rest of the teams, you just go right to the
Zoom in.
Falcons.
You got your 2 minutes.
Right to the Falcons.
If you're sick of your team and
Case
don't want to hear
Keenum
about them,
just
too bad.
tested positive for COVID.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, Mark.
that would have
That puts Nick
Schefter.
Mullins into the
that would have been
mix.
worth the breaking news, but
yeah,
I know you're trying to
I
get
just
it in.
screamed it out, so I was like, "Oh my god!" It just
You guys were members of the Nick Mullins fan club, especially you,
Yeah.
Rosenthal. So maybe they have a chance still.
I
That
like Nick
sucks,
Mullins,
Mark.
but I don't like the way that we've got him back in our life here.
That's brutal. That is brutal. Well, how do we know Nick Mullins doesn't have it if the other 2 quarterbacks do? This is the worst. This COVID-19. My God, can we please? Can we chill out with this?
Well, they said
I just-
they will not consider moving the game, but there's nowhere to move it. First of all,
Sunday? Even a day would
I
it
don't
help
think
if you
that's
bought
going
it?
to change much. But you're right. Why not Sunday? Because I'll tell you why. It's green
Money.
and it's shaped like
It's the thing that's
a
shooting out
rectangle.
of the
Right.
monster Greg's mouth
Right.
in the Rainmaker segment.
Monster.
All right.
I'm sorry, Mark. Well,
Well, I mean, life goes on. What can I do?
it
about
is a little. It is tough. Tough for those brownies.
All right. But good for you people who love a long podcast. All right, let's go. Dan Hansa signing off for Quiet Storm, the old boss, Ricky Hollywood, the Gravedigger, who closed the door on his private life today. I thought that was a class act.
But he's opening the door to a new bedroom this weekend.
And then he's closing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've sealed that up entirely.
Heed the call.